Grand rising, grand evening, whatever time it is for you. Hello, beautiful, beautiful souls. So today's video is going to be a bit different. I have some questions for you on this earth plane, in this earth school, leading with curiosity and making it a point in daily practice to ask ourselves questions is one of the divine cheat codes to connecting deeper with yourself, connecting deeper with the cosmic flow of energy that connects us all, and therein gaining more clarity and strengthening your discernment, which helps you move forward in all of your endeavors, as well as clears that perceptual lens so that you can objectively observe and look at the mirrored connections between what you're observing macroly and microly. So, before I ask you guys my questions, I'm going to try to make this video shorter than 40 minutes. But I'm not making any promises. We're going to journey where we journey, and we will end up where we end up as far as time goes. So, before I ask you these questions that I think are important questions to ask yourself, I want to first start by saying, in 2023, I posted a major prophetic insight, prophetic message, and since that time, I have shared several videos alluding to and sprinkled within those videos more prophetic messages specific to that specific original prophetic insight message. I have spoken about how there will come a time when those in perceived positions of power and authority, those who have used their positions to abuse, will lose what they've used to abuse. So whether that be finances, positions, social standing, domination, control, power, influence, all of the principality things that people have used on this earth plane, in this earth school, to abuse, to obstruct, to hinder, to enslave, to dominate, and entrap, those things. I talked about how those whom are out of resonance and have not integrated their shadows, so they're not vibrating at Earth's new frequency, which is the frequency of truth, because I'm not sure I've ever mentioned that. Earth's new vibration, the vibration that Gaia, Mother Gaia, that our Earth has been ascending to, is the natural state of things, which is truth. Those are synonymous. Authenticity, what is naturally occurring, and truth are all across the boards. It's that grand trine of God, of truth, right? And so, part of standing in your authenticity, standing in your truth, part of being able to recognize and see through the illusions and having the discernment, and as well as the self-awareness to recognize the illusions and disillusionments within yourself, the shadows within yourself, your subconscious drivers that need to first then be integrated in order to have that discernment when you look out in your external world. That's a very pivotal part of ascension and raising your vibration, your vibrational frequency to the frequency of truth, so that you are then operating in that authentic state and you are seeing what matches that frequency of truth and authenticity and what does not, right? So I talked about how those who are not a frequential match to that frequency, the frequency of truth, will fall away, essentially. There will be mysterious self-exits or mysterious unalivings, and how people will fall ill, how people will disappear, how there will be all of these ways that, it's like these sudden expirations of these figures and these individuals who have been operating within these principalities, and therefore operating completely unconscious, meaning that they have been operating as an empty vessel in which lower vibrational energies can work through, meaning all of their experience, the things that they do, and I apologize for the noise in the back, hopefully you can still hear me, but everything that drives them is those shadows. So it's like they've essentially become a conduit or a container for all of their unintegrated shadow, therein becoming the shadow, the unintegrated shadow, and inverting their soul, becoming a black hole soul of sorts, right? So I talked about how those individuals, the types of things that will play out in response to this unintegrated shadow. I talked about how in order to usher in, to create or build or construct anything new, that first the things that were built upon illusion, upon principality, upon hate, upon greed, upon lust, upon envy, upon domination, upon control, upon evil, right? Those things must deconstruct in order for us to reconstruct. The space needs to be created for something new to be birthed into our collective conscious manifestation that is this reality, right? So I have spoken about those things. I've touched on them from all of these different potentials, from all of these sides we have together, through me sharing these channeled messages and the information that is transmitted to me. We have looked at these things from all of these different angles, correct? So I think a few other things in reference to this prophecy is I've shared how, the last will be first and the first will be last, and all things being done in the dark will be brought out into the light for all to see. So the questions that I have in regards to these prophetic insights is, do you guys see this prophecy unfolding? These prophecies unfolding? Do you see the unfolding of these things occurring? Because I certainly do. I've touched on this previously, but the thing about a black hole soul, the reason why I've stated previously that these structures, these conglomerations, these social systems, why they will be rotting from the inside out or falling into a black hole, like it's more of an implosion than explosion, which is why collectively we're kind of like in this state of just observing, all things done in the dark are being brought out into light for all to see, and we are taking that objective standpoint and just watching it occur. That is, age of Aquarius, information age. These things are all being brought up to the surface for us to see. But the reason why the deconstruction happens from the inside out, why it's like this implosion, is because I have a prompt and I'm excited to use it, okay? Is because what being led, what being possessed, what being fully guided and fully driven by these principalities, by these by allowing the external to drive you versus allowing your own internal source energy, your own internal being to drive your experience, what happens is things like envy, things like greed, things like lust, things like megalomaniaism, things like narcissism, things like hatred, things like, all of these things, what they do is they harden the heart. It creates a soul rot of sort. Think about the human body and the way that your human bodily system functions. If you have a bad heart, if your heart is bad, if your heart is weak, if your arteries are calcifying, if this organ starts to break down in any way, shape, or form, it affects the entire system. It affects the entire system. A bad heart leads to death. And that's a fact. And so, that is a very physical way that I can express to you what is happening energetically. There is a soul rot. And let me tell you, this is another question I have for you. Have you gotten to the point in your journey where you recognize that everything at a macro level is just a mirrored expression of everything happening on a micro level? The interconnectedness between what you are seeing on the world stage, what is being reflected back to you, how deeply interconnected that is with the unfolding of your interpersonal individual human experience. They are so deeply connected and mirroring each other. The energies that you are observing, at a macro level are a perfect black mirrored reflection of what's happening energetically, within us as a human collective and in our interpersonal lives and experiences. If you're watching it happen up there, you might want to take some time to make the connections of where you're seeing it around you in your interpersonal, like in your own fractal bubble, because they're so deeply connected. But so what we are seeing, at this macro level is what happens when you close off a heart. And Earth is the heart of the universe. Your heart is where a lot of your creative flow. It's where it is something that is not meant to be contained. It's not meant to be shut down. It's not meant to be hardened, or it affects the entire system. Which is why when you look at this current system that is imploding, that is deconstructing and from the inside out, it perfectly represents and the way that affects our collective system, right? This collective manifestation of reality, right? A bad closed heart, it affects the entire system. And so that's what's been occurring for a very long time, hundreds of years now. Collectively, the energy of that heart energy, it's been blocked, it's been hardened, it's been calcified, the veins. There's so many blockages. There's so much death energy, right? That it's affected the entire system. But where we are currently, the point we're currently reaching right now is the end of this system, this collective bodily system that we are all a part of. It's dying. And it must die because there's something else that is gestating in this metaphorical cosmic womb space. There's something else ready to be birthed from the death of what is dying. And so as you look at these structures fail and collapse, as you watch people in mass numbers step down from their positions, as you see people, who have harbored secrets, who have committed crimes, against humanity, committed crimes against the planet, for greed, for domination, for the illusion of power, for all the things that are birthed from someone operating without a heart space, with a calcified, dead and dying heart. As you see those who have done that to themselves fall away, leave those positions, step down, or exit this experience in whatever way that happens, because it's happening in mass numbers. I'm seeing it more and more every day. There's a new, person who was in a perceived position of power that has resigned, that has stepped away, that has retired, that had, it's really interesting, because I read energy. So sometimes it takes me time to translate the energy of this grand design because like the energy that I pick up on, it gets really macro and really micro, and trying to be that bridge between those two spaces, sitting in that space of liminality, and then having to like translate these things into words, it can take time sometimes. That's all I have to say. But ask yourself, or I'm asking, are you seeing it? Do you see how necessary and natural, and I'm speaking from a place of objectivity, okay? I'm not speaking from left or right, up or down, here or there. I'm speaking from a place of everywhere. When I say that the way this breakdown, this implosion, this soul rot, this deconstruction process that is occurring is the only way to get from where we were to what always was, to return to that natural state, for things to be naturally occurring, authentic, to break and dissolve these illusions that we have all been, this collective spell, essentially, that humanity's been under for quite some time. It is the change of the old guard, because the universe is mathematic. It's built on geometry and numbers, and under every frequency there's a code. And so I know at a deep soul level that what goes up must come down, and what goes in must come out. And when things have been, when the collective shadow of humanity has been the driving force behind our collective manifestation of what reality is, the system, the matrix. When the matrix was formed and created by only subconscious drivers, by our shadow, and so many individuals on the planet have now integrated their own interpersonal shadows, the matrix, Gaia, this cosmic flow, whatever you want to call God, or like whatever you want to call it, because it's words, while they do carry a frequency, right? Every word carries a frequency. There's such a nuance to when it comes to words, because there's so many words that they mean the same thing. And depending on if you're someone who just receives information more practically, or you're someone who receives information more poetically, you can be, right and left, dark and light, up and down are not opposites, they're counterparts. And the irony is, in order to see them that way, all you have to do is revert or invert a lens. It's the same lens, though, that you're looking at these things through. It's just a lot of people don't recognize that for any idea, for any belief, any thought, anything that they're observing, there's a dual potential to it. Meaning that it cannot be without the other, without its opposite, which is also a counterpart. Like, that thing cannot exist without its opposite. So, and that's the truth. But yeah, I don't want to get too off track. The mind of an ADHD channeler. But yeah, it's just really interesting to see, what a perfect mirror, everything truly is. And, something else that I'm being guided to share, because I talk a lot about how important it is to trust ourselves, to trust your inner knowing, to trust your inner guidance, but not everyone is in a space or a place to do that. Not everyone receives information or can even conceptualize the information in the way that I share it, because I am very poetic, and I do like tapping into the emotional pool and then expressing in that artistic, unconventional way, right? I think words are beautiful, and the frequencies behind them are even more beautiful, and I like to paint with them, right? But another way that I'm being guided to share that is, if you are someone who doesn't resonate or has a hard time conceptualizing the concept of just trusting oneself in order to gain discernment, trust the laws of physics. Trust that. Because it's two sides of the same coin. When people say as above, so below, as within, so without, it's the same as like Newton's law. You can have faith and hold on to hope that things are being balanced out, and that from this death process comes rebirth, because there's a huge data set and reoccurring pattern across time all the way to the beginning that says that that's true. And the probability of that is almost 100. I mean, it can only be 99.99 because you got to take into account the anomalies. But for the most part, for some reason I'm being guided to share that, because maybe you're not someone who is spiritual. Maybe you're not someone who is very right-brained or right-sided with, your brain. Maybe you're not someone who is comfortable looking at things from that abstract way, through an abstract lens, through maybe the way that I speak and the way that I express is very woo-woo to you, or very like dreamy, right? So I still want this information to reach as many people as it can, because that's just what I'm guided to do, is share it in a way that it can be received by as many individuals who could have value, could find value in the information that I'm sharing. So you can also, another potential is looking at it as a math equation, a mathematical equation. There are certain laws, universal laws, and laws to physics and laws to energy, and the way that energy is exchanged, and the way that it moves, and the way that it shapes, and the way that matter responds to light and energy and frequency. And so you can look at it through that lens, and the answer is still going to be the same, or the conclusion, the potential, the theory, very high probability, is going to look the same on both sides of that coin, on both sides of that mirror, because the mirror is one, and these potentials are actually counterparts. So regardless of whether you want to look through that spiritual lens or look through that more practical 3D based lens, you can still reach the same conclusion. And have you tried that? Because if not, I implore you to do it, to try it out. I think it's really fun. It makes this human experience really interesting. If you can meet everything with curiosity, right? And you can leave yourself an open and receptive channel to all data, then eventually, if you have the neurology, if your mind works like this, and there are many people whose minds do work like this, so you might find this just a fun exercise to do. But if you can just allow yourself to literally be liminal, like be in this space of neutrality and liminality and all the time, or as much as possible, allow yourself to take in all of the sensory data and input from everything that you see, everything that you hear, all the interactions you have, the experiences you have, everything you allow into your ear gates and your eye gates. And if you're sitting in that place of liminality, then you're objectively observing it all, which means you're taking it all in, but it's not affecting you, not affecting your nervous system, not affecting you, because you're just looking at it. You're not absorbing it, you're just seeing it, right? So if you can do that, if you can sit there, if you can be there for a time, you start to see how everything truly is all interconnected. And if you want to find an answer here, you can look here to find the answer to what's over here, and you can look over here to find the answer to what's over here, and you can look at the negative polarity of anything to gain an understanding of the positive polarity of that thing, and vice versa. You can revert and invert, you can look around, you can look above and below, and gain a Metatron cube perspective of whatever is currently piquing your interest, whatever it is that you are objectively observing. If you can kind of just set the ego, the self, and even just, if you can just set yourself aside, for a moment to just see, to just look, that's the cheat code to seeing how, this piece of lint, how this grand design is designed, and it makes it really, it's almost like a treasure hunt puzzle. I don't know, there's many like metaphors I could utilize to explain the way that I channel and the way that I come to these understandings. But the best way I can put it is, if you can remain in that liminal state, subconsciously your mind is going to pick up everything, all the sensory data and information, and then eventually once enough data points have been inserted in your mind's archive on a specific thing that you're curious about, on a specific answer or truth or understanding that you're seeking, that pattern will come to completion, and then you have a whole data set. And then that data set is connected to a potential, both a past, present, and future potential and outcome. And then people will be like, oh, you predicted the future. But really, you just collected a lot of data, and you recognize that patterns continue going in a certain direction. And so if you can take in all the data and you see a pattern form, then you know logically that the pattern's going to continue going in that pattern. Now, what makes this fun is it starts off small at first, because it takes time to collect enough sensory data and information, knowledge, wisdom from your experiences, from what you're seeing, from what you're feeling, from what you're hearing, for a pattern to even emerge, There's some patterns that came to completion, and it took me 33 years of collecting this sensory data in my subconscious. There's some patterns that come to completion in a few months. There's some things that, I gain an awareness of in a day, a year, 5 years, 10 years, But that's a piece of my soul I'm sharing with you. That's how I process information. That's how I come to these conclusions. That's how my mind works. And if I've learned anything on this journey, on this earth plane, in this earth school, I'm never alone. There are several other people who process information the same way that I do, and who would find the information that I share useful, which is why I do this. Even if one person is like, oh my goodness, that just completely, that she makes sense. What she's saying, that was the last little data set I needed to complete a pattern in my own life and come to a knowing and a deeper understanding of something. If I can do that, that makes me that makes me really happy. And so, anyways, that was the message. Ask yourself all the questions, and I'm curious. I'm curious if you guys are seeing these prophecies play out and unfold, because I certainly am. And I mean several prophecies that many people who share prophetic messages, who are connected to, that liminal space, or the infinite, whatever you want to call it, that place where past, present, and future all reside. These prophetic messages, and you can even find them in the Bible, we're seeing these things play out. And so I'm curious how many of you have recognized the pattern and what's unfolding, and how many of you guys have recognized the significance of it all. I'm sending you guys so much love to the universe and beyond. Bye.